Hello, and welcome to Guidance for Better Life. Today, my guest is going to share how she prayed for a puppy when she was young. I suspect some of you felt the same way, a puppy or a cat. But there's more to this story than just a pet. God's involved a little bit, and following nudges and a few other things. So if you like puppies and dogs and cats, I hope you stick around. I think it'll be fun. So, hi, Jean.
Hi.
This is Jean Eisenbrenner, and she wrote a beautiful story. We have not published it yet in one of our 12 or 13 books or so, but in a future book we plan on publishing this. But it's so good we didn't want to wait. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, before you get into the pet you prayed for, you had a pet before named Mandy.
Yeah.
How old were you with that dog?
I was about 12 years old when she passed away. We'd had her for about 10 years, and she was this big black dog, half black lab, half Irish setter, and she had been sick for a while. She had cancer, and Dad took her to the vet, and it was just time, and we had to put her to sleep.
Your dad decided to put her down?
He did.
And you said in your story it was very difficult on your dad, and when you asked for another pet, he just didn't want to go there because it was too painful.
Yeah.
Putting the dog down.
It was really hard for him.
Okay.
He didn't even want to talk about the idea of getting another dog.
But in your heart, you're trying to go above his pay grade, right?
Right.
You're trying to go right to God. Your dad didn't want one, but maybe God will let you have one. You were basically praying. Was it an active prayer, or were you just kind of wishing you had a pet, or did you actually pray to God?
It was an active prayer.
Okay.
We went to church every Sunday, and just about every week at some point during the service, I would pray to God and tell him how much I wanted a puppy. And
Did you tell him your dad didn't approve, but maybe he would? So,
I think that was part of the prayer.
part of the prayer.
Yeah.
And how'd it go? Was the prayer answered eventually?
It was. It was about a year before I knew I got the answer to the prayer. I was in the kitchen doing dishes, and I just had this feeling that I wanted to go outside. Not really wanting to go, but I needed to go.
Yeah, in your story, it was like a nudge, and it was almost like you were being pulled from the kitchen. It's very palatable, right?
Yes, it was.
That you were being a nudge, which was like you just were being told on some level, although maybe you didn't understand at the time, you had to go out in the backyard. Was it that strong?
It was. It was very strong.
And did you follow the nudge?
I did. I decided, well, if anybody asks me what I'm doing, I'll just say I was going to get my telescope out and wanted to see if the stars were out. So I had a cover
it was
story.
at night?
It was at night.
Okay.
And I went out into the backyard, and I immediately heard the leaves rustling off to the side. And I went back inside really quick because I thought maybe there was some kind of wild animal hiding in the backyard. But as soon as I closed the door, this tiny little puppy came to the back door, and I went and I got my parents, and Mom picked her up, and we never even talked about the possibility of not keeping this dog.
I think in the story you were immediately talking what you do to somebody that tried to take it from you.
Right. We had a story in place in case somebody said, "That's our dog."
So was it love at first sight, or just you knew you and your mom were going to keep the puppy?
It was love at first sight. We spent the whole night playing with this puppy.
Okay.
We had checked out a movie, but we never watched the movie because we just spent the whole time playing with this little puppy.
So how old was it? Was it past being weaned?
It was in February, and we had guessed that she was probably somebody's Christmas present.
That didn't want her?
Yeah, just a few months old, not very old at all.
Okay, but old enough to be eating dog food and
Oh, yeah.
stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. So immediately, did you think at that time that it was a prayer answered, or was that not even in your consciousness?
I knew from that night that it was an answer to the prayer. I remember just being amazed that I had gone out in the backyard, and here was this puppy that I'd been
There's the answer
praying
to your
for.
prayer.
Yeah.
And you were actually aware of that. How old were you roughly?
I was about 12 or 13, somewhere around there.
Okay, and you truly felt that God answered your prayer by this magical puppy just showed up in the backyard.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I felt like the way that I found her was part of knowing that it was the answer to the prayer, because there's a lot of ways that I could have gone out in the backyard. I could have heard a noise. I could have actually wanted to get out my telescope, but it was just so clear that I was going out in the backyard to find that puppy.
Okay. That was the pull. Did you feel
Yeah.
like it was a nudge from the divine grabbing you and saying, here's your answer, get out back and accept the gift?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you name your dog?
Charlie,
Charlie, okay.
even though it was a girl.
Even though, oh, why was that? Why Charlie?
I don't remember what the story was behind that. I think it was a perfume or a song or something like that, but it just seemed to suit her for some reason.
Okay. Now, in your story, and I guess because you had Mandy, a large dog, you were praying for a really large dog. What was some of the types of dogs you were praying for?
I loved all of these sled dog books when I was that
Okay.
age, and so I was thinking an Alaskan Malamute or a Husky mix, or
But it was a small puppy, you
it
said,
was.
like a lapdog type puppy. What type of dog was it?
We guessed she was a Corgi mix, so she was like a little bigger than a cat and just very sturdy dog.
Because you talked about the family could carry her around in your lap, and she could sit with you in the evenings. So do you feel like your prayer wasn't totally answered?
No, she was the perfect breed, the perfect dog. Because about a year after that, my parents separated for a while, and Mom was living in a townhouse in a different part of the county. If we had had a big dog, it would have just added problems, trying to bring the dog back
Okay.
and forth with me and my sister, or not being able to bring the dog with us. But
But a small dog, you could do that.
she was perfect, and she could sit on people's laps, and she was comfort to all of us.
So in a way, God, maybe He knew something was up in the future with your parents, and knew that you needed a small dog.
Yeah.
So it didn't take away from the prayer. It's like He knew what you needed more than maybe you knew. Is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah, a lot of times folks pray for things and they don't get their exact prayer answered. But if they're perceptive, sometimes they realize it was actually better than their precise prayer.
Yeah.
So, and you took it that way
I did.
at the time.
And I loved Shirley. I wouldn't have her any other way.
Okay. Is there anything else in this story?
Well, as she got older, you had shared in class before that pets will sometimes come back.
Yeah.
And so as she got older, I would look in her eyes and I would tell her how much I loved her, and if she ever wanted to come back, that I would love to have her.
Okay.
And she lived until she was in her late teens. She had a long life. And I moved down to Charlottesville, and I was thinking about getting a dog,
Okay.
but I lived in
And she was passed by now?
She had passed by now.
Passed,
She'd been
okay.
passed for a few years.
And you said she lived in her late teens, something like that. And now you're leaving the home. You moved to Charlottesville, and now you're starting to think about a pet again.
Right.
Okay.
And I always had dogs. So that was my first thought, is to get a dog, but I didn't have a fenced-in backyard, and I was gone all day at work and had a long commute, and it just
And you didn't. You said in
Wasn't
your
a good
story you
fit.
didn't really want to walk them in the rain.
No.
And a cat, you don't have to walk in the rain.
No. And when you suggested I get a cat, I ended up going to the
Now, why was that? I remember in class one day, I felt a strong nudge listening to the divine that you needed a cat.
I
Do you
did.
remember why? I remember saying that. I don't know how long ago that was. But Gene, maybe you should buy a cat or get a cat or something. Do you remember why I suggested a cat?
I was really lonely at the time, and I was
Okay.
struggling in a lot of areas. I was thinking about myself a lot because I was by myself a lot in the house.
Okay.
And I wanted love, but it wasn't working. I needed to give love.
Yeah, it seemed like you were thinking about yourself mostly,
Right.
and that wasn't scratching that itch for love.
Right.
And I think we talked about, and your story talked about it a little bit, the best way to get love, if you want love, and I think we all want love on some level, is to first give it. And people get frustrated if they don't receive love. They keep thinking about themselves. And for some reason, God wants us to think about ourselves, but also others. And I think our discussion was back then, I don't remember it real well, was you were so self-absorbed in a way, thinking just about you, and wondering why you didn't feel love.
Yeah.
When people think mostly about themselves, it seems like they don't get much love. But if you have some way to express love, then all of a sudden God sets it up so the love comes back. I think he wants us to love others, not just ourselves. Was that the gist of the conversation?
Yes.
So you went to get a cat. That seemed like the way to go.
Yes.
And how'd that work out for you?
Well, I found the most wonderful cat named Bravo.
That took some effort.
Yeah.
In your story, you went to the pound? Where did you go?
I went to the animal shelter.
All right, you went through all the little animal booths, or little cages, and none of them felt right.
No. I had prayed for help before I went to the animal shelter because I had always had dogs.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what I was looking for in a cat. So I knew what a dog's body language was and kind of had to tell what their
Okay.
personality was, but not really with a cat.
You never had a cat as a child?
For a little while when I was in college, but not when I
Not
was a
much,
child.
okay.
Yeah. So I went through all the different cats, and there's rows and rows of cats in the animal shelter. And I got to the last row, and it just didn't seem like any of those were my cat. And I remember looking up, and there was a door off to the side, and it was where they kept the indoor-outdoor cats. And I went in, and as soon as I walked in there, I heard a lady saying, "If you want a cat that will just sit on your lap and be petted all day, these are not the cats for you." So I asked her,
Okay.
"Well, where can I find one of those cats?" And she said that I needed to meet Bravissimo, who later became Bravo for short.
Okay.
It turned out that they had Bravo up at in the lunch area that day, and all he wanted to do was sit on everybody's laps. So she was
She knew the cat for you.
right, she did. So she brought me over and introduced me to Bravo, and we spent some time together, and I was really enjoying spending time with this cat, and he was really sweet. And then I wasn't sure if he was the right cat, but then I started to worry that if I went home and somebody else could adopt him while I was away, and that's when
You
I
lose
knew
him. That's when you knew you wanted Bravo.
that he was my cat, yes.
Cool. And you took him home that day, or?
I did. I went and I told the people at the front desk that I wanted to adopt Bravo, and I brought him home.
Okay.
And as soon as I brought him home, there was just so much love between us. It made such a huge difference in my home. So I was doing a lot of the same things, but it was totally different because now I had Bravo there to love.
Yeah, somebody, not just to give love, but you learn to express love. I
Yes.
think that's why I suggested a cat.
Yes,
Did you desire to give love to the cat and take care of him?
I did. I loved everything about him. Spending time with him, even cleaning his litter box and feeding him,
Yeah.
and all the little things you do to take care of them. Just it all blessed me to be able to give to him and just
And because
have.
you started giving, had an outlet to give love,
Mhm.
did you feel the love you'd been craving love, but it seemed like it wasn't working? And now you're giving all this love. Did you feel like you could receive love after you learned to give love?
I did. The love had always been right there, but I just couldn't receive it. After having Bravo to spend time with and be there to love every day, I felt like I could accept love from friends and family and even from God more than I had.
Yeah, it wasn't
in the
just the
past.
cat. The cat was a doorway to learning how to give love.
Yes.
And once you learned how to give love, are you saying you were able to receive it not only from Bravo, but then people, your teacher, friends, family?
Mm-hmm.
There was like a block there.
Yeah.
And it seemed like in your story you were very open and honest, which I appreciate, that you were so self-absorbed, so all about you,
Mm-hmm.
or me, or however you would put that, that because of that, it actually put up a block. The harder you tried to scratch your itches without thinking about anybody else, the harder it was to receive. Was that still how you feel about that?
Absolutely. It seems like when I was thinking about myself, it's like all of my thoughts were tangled, I guess, and everything pointed back to myself. It's like the more I thought about myself, the tighter and closer everything got.
Almost the smaller the world got.
Right.
And when you have a way to express love and care for somebody, or a cat in this case, it opened up a whole nother world to you.
It
When you
did.
learned to give love, is that what you're saying? When you learned to give love and enjoyed it, then you started receiving love that was already there, but you couldn't receive it from friends and family. So the cat was a catalyst in a sense.
Yeah.
Is that how your story goes?
Yeah, he really opened a doorway to love to me.
Okay, a doorway.
Yeah, like just being with him opens my heart every day. And
Yeah.
when your heart's open, that's when you can give and receive love.
Very cool. Is there anything else in your story you'd like to share?
Well, there's one other little detail with Bravo. Once I got him, there were little things that he would do that reminded me of Charlie, the dog that
Oh, the
I
dog you had earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I started to wonder if Bravo was actually Charlie come back.
And that happens sometimes. A pet, if there's love, will come back as a cat. You get another dog, it's the same dog, or a cat or whatever, that they can come back. I can help them reincarnate, so you still have that same soul in a different little body.
Yeah.
And you felt that there might be a possibility?
I did. And I went into the veterinarian, and this was in a totally different town. They knew nothing of Charlie.
They didn't know your history?
No. And then
Okay.
I walked in with Bravo in the carrier, and the lady at the front desk looked at me and said, "Is that Charlie you have in the carrier?"
Wow. Did you feel that was a confirmation?
I did. I felt like the answer to that was yes, that is absolutely Charlie in the
Yeah.
carrier, just in a different body.
Yeah, God can use certain people to say things like that, little slips, that for you was more than a slip. It was like an insight, kind of from above, through that person working there. Cool. So that love connection you have with Charlie, it's in a different body, in a different form. It's a cat now. And you had a great definition of God's love. What I can't remember the exact, but it cracks me up when I hear it.
That Bravo was a ball of God's love that lives in my house.
Yeah, so it's not really a cat.
No.
Bravo's not a cat, folks. It's a ball of God's love disguised as a cat.
Very clever disguise.
Very clever disguise. But you were saying you can see through the disguise, and you know it's a ball of God's love. It's in fur. Very clever disguise. So, is there anything else you'd like to share?
It's just so beautiful how God expresses love to us, and that it came in such a package that I could accept.
Yeah.
It was just so perfect.
You couldn't accept it from friends or families. As your spiritual teacher for years, there seemed to be a bit of a wall there. People loved you, that didn't change, but you couldn't accept it. And I think anybody that starts thinking too much about and clinging on to their needs, it almost puts up a wall so they can't scratch their needs or get their needs taken care of. And as soon as you had something to open your heart and take care of their needs, your kitty cat, it opened up you to be more receptive to the love that was already there for you. So very clever. You still see Bravo as a ball of God's love disguised as a cat?
I do.
You do? Okay. You gonna get another cat?
I do. I have 2 cats now.
Oh, you do? Oh my gosh. So now you can really love.
Yes.
Have you seen seriously, I didn't know you had another cat. Do you feel that's helped you even accept more love?
I do.
So if you had 100 cats, you'd be really good at accepting
I
love.
think that might be pushing it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And folks, this is a little bit more than just a cat story or dog story. The deeper pearl here is if you're really hungering for love, and that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing at all. Nothing wrong with you if you want love. It's wonderful. But if you feel you're having a hard time receiving love, and I've seen this for years doing spiritual retreats now for 29 years, the folks like Gene that want love really bad, but they don't have an outlet to give love, tends to struggle. There seems to be a wall up. And the harder they try to receive love, sometimes the bigger the wall, or the thicker the wall. And I've seen this in many cases where if you can find some way to give love, whether a person, a cat, a dog, if you can find an outlet to give love, all of a sudden you're able to receive love a lot more. And I kind of think God sets it up that way because he wants us to think about others and not just about ourselves constantly. He wants us to love our neighbor. And maybe he has it set so you almost have to love your neighbor before you can feel love sometimes. So thank you so much for sharing your story. I hope people see this in more than just a furry animal story, although that's a good part too. And I hope the show in some way blessed you today. Thank you so much for watching.